Oh, goddess, hear these tuneless numbers, rung by sweet enforcement and remembrance dear, and pardon that thy secrets should be sung even into thine own soft-conched ear. Surely I dreamt today, or did I see the winged Psyche with awakened eyes? I wandered in a forest thoughtlessly, and, on the sudden, fainting with surprise, saw two fair creatures couched side by side in deepest grass, beneath the whispering roof of leaves and trembled blossoms, where there ran a brooklet, scarce espied. Mid hushed, cool-rooted flowers, fragrant-eyed, blue, freckle-pink, and budded Tyrian, they lay calm-breathing on the bedded grass. Their arms embraced, and their pinions too. Their lips touched not, but had not bade adieu, as if disjoined by soft-handed slumber, and ready still past kisses to outnumber at tender-eyed dawn of Aurorian love. The winged boy I knew, but who wast thou, O happy, happy dove? His Psyche true. O latest born and loveliest vision far of all Olympus' fated hierarchy, fairer than Phoebe's sapphire region's star, or Vesper, amorous glowworm of the sky, fairer than these, though temple thou hast none, nor altar heaped with flowers, nor virgin choir to make delicious moan upon the midnight hours, no voice, no lute, no pipe, no incense sweet from chain-swung censer teeming, no shrine, no grove, no oracle, no heat of pale-mouthed prophet dreaming. O brightest, though too late for antique vows, too late for the fond believing lyre, when holy were the haunted forest boughs, holy the air, the water, and the fire. Yet even in these days so far retired from happy pieties, thy lucent fans, fluttering among the faint Olympians, I see, and sing, by my own eyes inspired. So let me be thy choir, and make a moan upon the midnight hours. Thy voice, thy lute, thy pipe, thy incense sweet from swinged censer teeming, thy shrine, thy grove, thy oracle, thy heat of pale-mouthed prophet dreaming. Yes, I will be thy priest, and build a fane in some untrodden region of my mind, where branched thoughts, new grown with pleasant pain, instead of pines shall murmur in the wind. Far, far around shall those dark clustered trees fledge the wild-ridged mountains steep by steep, and there, by zephyrs, streams, and birds, and bees, the moss-laden dryads shall be lulled to sleep. And in the midst of this wide quietness, a rosy sanctuary will I dress, with the wreathed trellis of a working brain, with buds and bells and stars without a name, with all the gardener fancy e'er could feign, who breeding flowers will never breed the same. And there shall be for thee all soft delight that shadowy thought can win, a bright torch and a casement ope at night, to let the warm love in. What first strikes me about this ode is its passion, sincerity, and the reverence to ancient Greek religion. Before writing about ancient Greece or reading one of that civilization's surviving works, I think it would be invaluable to read those lines regarding holy elements and happy pieties. And those thoughts does the spirit of ancient Greece still breathe? Now at the start, the first couple lines effectively set the tone. The gentle voice in humbling worship. The first four lines almost require a bowed head. There's that particular smoothness of light and graceful music in the second line. By sweet enforcement and remembrance dear. The majority of short E sounds and the long vowels, varied but related to the E sound in sweet and dear, contribute to this. As in his Nightingale poem, Keats questions whether what he experienced was a dream or reality, although it is not the main theme of this poem. The theme is a poet's desire to worship a neglected deity. With a head empty of thoughts, he discovers, stepping through the forest, the tryst between Psyche and Cupid. The line, "Beneath the whispering roof of leaves and trembled blossoms," is one of those lovely lines of poetry that ornament a natural fact. Next time a branch shades you from the summer sun, give an ear to the sound it makes on the wind. Whispering is a wonderfully appropriate verb and works on another level. It is a facet of private love, and almost makes the reader think the speaker is actually listening in on their secret conversation. In the first two lines of the second stanza, please pass these colored flowers across your mind. The selection of colors, such as blue and silver white, although in another alteration it's freckled pink, these are decoratively pleasing. Perhaps these hues could hint at body tones, as he had described the feet of Cynthia and Endymion as blue-veined. Keats was steeped in Shakespeare, and he sometimes adopted his methods of inventiveness. New phrases will be made to serve as newly crafted words for undescribed facts. But sometimes the sign of affectation, or the sign of simply applying a method without considering its effectiveness, comes from the phrase calm breathing for me. I just don't think it adds enough to warrant a new phrase. I think calm is kind of already implied with the verb breathing. However, he does strike the new phrase right a few lines later when he says, soft-handed slumber. In the Ode on a Grecian Urn, there's the famous lines of a figure not able to lock lips with his lover, and here a similar scene is sketched in. Their lips touched not, but had not bade adieu. There's kind of a frozen potential, this moment right before the climax. I think it's also a method of dramatization that's used in historical paintings. There's another line in this stanza that readers of Keats have been fond of and repeat as a particular mark of genius. That's the "at tender-eyed dawn of Aurorian love." I think this is one of those lines in poetry that I'll use to demonstrate a certain rule. In poetry, there seems a rule of inverse proportion when it comes to figurative and metaphorical imagery. Sometimes poets give the rein of reason to fancy. She eagerly flies off with a brush to paint beautiful, though increasingly meaningless, pictures. The more pleasing the mellifluous sounds charm our ear, often the more meaningless, confused, or simply trivial the thought is. Every writer who has gotten lost in the creative trance will know what I am talking about. Keats falls right on the edge with this line, in part because it's only a line. Though again, in confession to the weakness of this particular reader, a certain mood will have me receptive to different intuitive truths. The meaning of this line may sing its truth to me then, and make those silent impressions upon the heart. There's another line I think worth the effort of resurrecting into your mind its reality. Nor virgin choir to make delicious moan upon the midnight hours. I'm still deciphering what pale-mouthed means in the context of the prophet. I think it may be a general lightness in hues of the mouth, of pinks and whites and reds like the sweet roses of a Valentine bouquet. It says, no heat of pale-mouthed prophet dreaming. Perhaps the heat of excitement, if as a devoted worshipper you travel with a small group composed of friends and strangers towards the presence of a truth-teller, and hearing in her words, hollow and deep, a strain of notes eternal that spoke to your heart and convinced you, more persuasive than conducive argument, that she was speaking, not about any one thing, but the thing itself, as if temporarily possessed by its very spirit, she but a living outlet for immortal winds. Keats and poets generally are at their best when they enter the very spirit of what they wish to write about, when the trappings and manacles of time, place, and contemporary beliefs melt from their consciousness, far, far away from the worldly din. Now we may step in time with the piping shepherd, or join that pagan congregation in the Ode to Pan, the beginning of Keats's Endymion, and walk through sacred woods. Bow your head to the eternal blessing of the elements, when holy where the haunted forest bows, holy the air, the water, and the fire. Again, this is just a dedicated acknowledgement of what these things actually mean to us, on behalf of their existence as their sustenance and source of power. Now the lines, yes, I will be thy priest, and build a fane in some untrodden region of my mind, where branched thoughts, new grown with pleasant pain, instead of pine shall murmur in the wind. Think he means new pathways of thought and sensation, which are of course the result of new experiences. There was a line in his letters that he wished for a philosophical back garden in his mind, a place of deeper repose, away from the world. Branched thoughts, I think, is how ideas are interconnected. It's like when we speak and we move from topic to subtopic to a main topic. Instead of pines, I think that would mean routine thoughts or beliefs that exist on merely utilitarian grounds, kind of like substantial facts empty of spiritual significance, but I'm just guessing here. The next few lines paint for us the enchanted landscape and atmosphere. Here, the poet again takes up his task of devotion to Psyche when he says, "And in the midst of the wide quietness, a rosy sanctuary will I dress." And he proceeds to list all of his rituals and gifts. I think there's a psychological insight in the lines, "With all the gardener fancy ever could feign, who breeding flowers will never breed the same." I think at the surface level, these are like obviously literally flowers that have not yet been symbolized by a deity. On a slightly deeper level, I think these flowers could be general pleasures, and that fancy never breeds the same pleasure or takes interest in the same pleasure twice, but is always hopping from one new excitement to the next. So the poem ends in the resumption of the popular myth of Psyche and Cupid, with the warm love making his way to Psyche's chamber. And I think this is really kind of the poet returning back into the subject by being reincarnated as love himself, and he's letting himself through the casement. And so the story, the myth continues with him involved. And yeah, those are just some of my thoughts of Ode to Psyche by John Keats. Thanks for watching.